When a police shooting happens, most people make up their minds almost instantly. Sometimes it's based on a headline. Sometimes it's based on a short clip shared online. And sometimes it's based on what we already believed before we ever press play. But here's the uncomfortable part. The same video can lead to very different conclusions depending on how much context you allow into the analysis. In this video, I asked the AI to analyze the Renee Good shooting in two different ways. First, by looking into the video footage itself with no background at all. And second, by researching the case first and then analyzing the same footage with that context in mind. The difference between those two answers is where things get interesting. But before we get into that, this is a new channel, and if you like calm, structured analysis instead of emotional takes, subscribing really helps. And make sure to watch until the end, because the conclusion changes depending on how the question is framed. Before we get into the footage, it's important to explain what I did. I used two separate AI prompts. The first prompt strictly limits the analysis to what can be seen and heard in the video. No background, no reporting, no assumptions beyond the footage itself. The second prompt forces the AI to research the Renee Good shooting first, using recent reporting and publicly available information, and only then analyze the video. Same footage, two different analytical lenses. So let's start with the first one. Here's the prompt I used. Write a single, clear response in normal everyday language without bullet points or lists. Only use what can be clearly seen and heard in the video footage I provided. Do not assume motives, background history, or intent beyond what is visible on the screen. Based on the actions shown in the video, analyze how the situation escalated, who made choices that increased risk, and whether the use of force appears reasonable or avoidable from a neutral, common-sense perspective. Acknowledge the limits of the video evidence, but do not avoid forming an opinion. Avoid legal jargon, politics, or emotional language. Do not speculate about facts that are not visible in the footage. Finish with a clear, plain language judgment about responsibility based strictly on behavior shown in the video, rather than saying it's unclear or it depends. And the AI's response was: based only what is visible in the footage, the situation appears to escalate when officers approach and surround the stopped vehicle on a snowy street, positioning themselves around the doors and the windows while giving commands. The person inside the vehicle does not appear to exit quickly, and the standoff continues for several moments, with officers maintaining close proximity to the car rather than creating distance. At this stage, nothing extreme has happened yet. What stands out is proximity. Officers move in close and stay close. The vehicle is stopped, commands are being given, and time is passing. The decision to remain close rather than step back quietly sets the tone for everything that follows. The risk increases as officers remain clustered near the vehicle, including alongside an open door, which limits reaction time if the situation changes suddenly. The escalation peaks when gunfire occurs at very close range. This is a key point. When armed officers stand within a few feet of a vehicle, reaction time disappears. Any sudden movement, intentional or not, becomes dangerous. The gunfire happens at a very close range, which means decisions are being made in fractions of a second under maximum stress. From a common sense perspective, the use of deadly force happens after a series of choices that keep everyone in tight quarters instead of slowing the encounter or increasing space, which could have reduced risk. At the same time, the video does not show everything, including what officers may have seen inside the vehicle or what was said that is not audible, so the evidence is incomplete. Here the AI acknowledges limits. The footage doesn't show everything, and that matters, but it also points out that earlier choices reduced options instead of expanding them. Distance and time could have lowered risk, but those options were not taken. Still, judging strictly by what is shown on screen, the escalation is driven mainly by officers moving in close and maintaining that position, and the shooting appears avoidable based on visible behavior alone. Responsibility based purely on the actions visible in the video rests primarily with the officer's decision to press the confrontation at close range rather than disengaging or creating distance before using force. This is the first conclusion. Without any outside context, the AI places primary responsibility on officer decision actions visible in the footage. The keyword here is avoidable. Based on what can be seen, the shooting does not appear inevitable. If you like this analysis so far and are interested to see more of these rational breakdowns, I would really appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel. Now let's see how that conclusion changes when context is added. Write a single, clear response in normal, everyday language without bullet points or lists. Before analyzing the video footage, first research the Renee Good shooting using recent, reliable reporting and publicly available information. Use that research to understand who was involved, what is known about the events leading up to the shooting, and the general context surrounding it. After you have that background, analyze only what can be clearly seen and heard in the video footage I provide. Do not assume motives, intent, or facts that are not visible on screen, and do not rely on speculation beyond what the video shows. Based strictly on the actions shown, explain how the situation escalated, which choices increased risk, and whether the use of force appears reasonable or avoidable from a neutral, common sense perspective. Acknowledge the limits of video evidence, but do not avoid forming an opinion. Avoid legal jargon, politics, or emotional language, and do not assign criminal guilt. Finish with a clear, plain language judgment about responsibility based on both the research context and the behavior visible in the video, rather than saying it depends or it's unclear. Here, the AI really took its time to analyze the footage, so I was pretty interested to see the response we get. And here it is. Recent reporting and publicly available records broadly agree on the basic backdrop. On January 7, 2026, Renee Good, a 37-year-old Minneapolis area mother, was shot and killed during the confrontation connected to the ICE operation in Minneapolis near Portland Avenue, and the ICE agent publicly identified in multiple outlets is Jonathan Ross. Officials have argued the shooting was self-defense after the SUV allegedly struck or threatened agents, while local officials, witnesses, and some reportings have disputed that the description and emphasized how quickly events unfolded and how hard it is to verify vehicle contact from the available angles. Context immediately complicates things. This wasn't a random stop, but a federal operation. There are competing narratives, and even the basic claim of vehicle contact is disputed. That uncertainty matters before even watching the footage. Still, within what is visible, an SUV is on a snowy icy street with several armed officers in close proximity. The vehicle appears to maneuver while people are near it, and there are loud, sharp crack sounds close in time to the tense moment when an officer is positioned near the front side of the vehicle. And then officers are seen with weapons up and moving in, followed by aftermath-style clips that do not clearly resolve whether the SUV actually makes contact with any officer. This highlights a major limitation. The footage itself is fragmented, it shows movement, proximity, and gunfire, but it does not clearly confirm the key claim of contact at the moment shots are fired. Based on behavior alone, the escalation is driven by two compounding choices. The driver keeps moving the vehicle while surrounded at close range, which predictably raises the risk of someone being struck or panicking, and the officers place themselves within the vehicle's immediate path or escape space instead of creating distance, which predictably increases the chance that any sudden lurch looks like an attack and triggers gunfire. This is where responsibility becomes shared. The driver's movement is now treated as a serious risk factor. At the same time, officer positioning is still identified as critical decision that amplifies danger. In plain terms, a moving car in a tight crowd is dangerous, but is also avoidable for officers to stand so close to its front and then treat a short movement as a lethal threat if they have room to step away. In the footage you provided, the most important missing fact is decisive visual proof of contact or an unavoidable immediate threat at the instant shots are fired, and without that, firing into the driver's area comes across as a choice that could have been avoided by backing off and using distance rather than bullets, especially given the slippery conditions and confusion. The AI draws a line here. Context explains fear, but it does not erase alternatives. Distance remains the central variable. My overall judgment, combining the widely reported context and disputed vehicle strike claims with what this particular video actually shows, is that the driver's decision to move the SUV while people were close was a major mistake that increased danger, but the greater responsibility for the fatal outcomes lies with the officer who chose to shoot during a fast-moving, ambiguous moment that this footage does not clearly show as an unavoidable last resort. The conclusion shifts, but it doesn't flip. Responsibility is shared but not equal. Context softens the judgment without reversing it. What this comparison shows is how powerful framing is. Without context, the shooting looks avoidable and driven by officer decisions. With context, it becomes a chaotic situation shaped by fear, confusion, and bad choices on multiple sides, but still without clear visual proof that lethal force was not the only option. If you find this kind of side-by-side analysis useful, that's what this channel is about. Asking AI questions in different ways and seeing how those answers change. If you want more videos like this, consider subscribing. And let me know in the comments where do you stand on this tragic incident and which analysis you found more convincing and why. Thanks for watching. Until next time.